Millennials gotta whine, it seems. Hey, okay, boomer, how about you fucking upload this shit on time and I won't complain? You know, I don't think I've said okay, boomer yet at all, actually. That was probably the first time I've dropped it, and it felt pretty satisfying. It just cracks me up because people are so upset about it. They're like, I can't believe you've called me old. What else would I say? To be honest with you, I wouldn't say okay, boomer most of the time. Me personally, I would say, hey, shut up, old man. You old idiot, shut up, bitch. Like, it's much. I actually think old boomer or okay boomer is actually a lot nicer than most of the things I would say. Like, most of the time, I'm like, listen, old timer, you fucking take it easy there, you crickety old fuck. You got 1 foot out the door. That's much meaner than saying okay boomer, right? That's like a much, I feel like what I would say is much more rude than what even okay boomer implies, and I imply that Quan144 is very kind for dropping the Twitch Prime. Boomer, it makes me think of Left 4 Dead when I hear it. We were all called nerds and basement dwellers by those boomers anyway. That's true. It always reminds me of like when I get on flights, and because I fly a lot, I get upgraded to first class for free all the time. It's just one of the nice things about having a lot of miles. And I'm sitting up in first class, and I'm like the youngest person there by like 25 years. And everybody around me is wearing like a suit, and they're talking about these big business deals they're making, and I'm sitting there in like joggers and like a hoodie. They're all looking at me like, this kid shouldn't be here. Like, he does not deserve to be on this flight. Do I ever chat them up? Sometimes, yeah. I had a conversation with a guy on the way to Calgary who was talking to me about business deals, and he was like an investor guy, and he was like, why don't you just start a tournament? Why don't you start a tournament? That's how you make money. And I was like, well, in our space in fighting games, like, running a tournament can be profitable at certain levels, but it's not that easy. It's like, no, it isn't. You just got to get money from an investor. It's not that hard. I'm like, okay, well, if you convince an investor to help fund a tournament, like, you also have to convince them of the return of it, right? Like, they're not just going to give me a bunch of money for no reason. I have to make a good argument. It's like, oh, no, well, I'm invested in like 1 million companies. I can get, how much money you need to start a tournament? Like, couple $100,000. I get you a couple $100,000 real easy, and you can just run a tournament. It's no problem. Having like a conversation with someone like this, who's like, view of the world is so drastically different than mine, is like, so I'm like, well, what happens when you run this tournament for a couple $100,000 and it doesn't make money, and it doesn't make them back money? He's like, oh no, it'll be fine. We'll just, who plays these video games? Just fly out some kids, Yeah, he was in oil and gas. He's like, we'll just fly out some people, some celebrities and stuff, and, it'll just make everybody come, and we'll make the money back. And I was like, I don't think that's going to work. I don't know. That seems like, I mean, there's people in our space that run really awesome events that people love. I don't know if it's quite going to work like that. He's like, no, it's no problem. Just get a couple $100,000, easy peasy. Just run a tournament, and everybody will show up because we'll have some celebrities out there. We'll get some sports guys out there. People will love it. And I was like, this is how these decisions get made, huh? There's just a guy with all this money, and he's just like, all right, let's do it. And I tried to be like, well, traditionally in our space, and he's just like, well, don't worry about it. I got this figured out. I ran this great charity event a while ago. I shouldn't have even tried to explain that, perhaps being like reasonable with money is a good idea. He was like, fuck it. Let's just spend all this money. I was like, but what about all the people in the community that like these tournaments? How do we make it interesting for them? And they're like, no. It's fascinating the way his position and view in life is so different from mine, I was like, I don't know, man. I feel like if this tournament doesn't make money, isn't somebody going to be upset? He's like, nah. It'll make money. I was like, all right. I don't want to run a tournament. That's the thing. I'm not interested in running a tournament. I've said many times that I think TOing sucks. It seems like so much work. And I told him, I was like, dude, to be honest with you, running an event is not really my forte anyway. I told him I do content, like streaming content on the internet, and I commentate, right, is what I told him. And I was like, I mostly do podcast style discussions, and I do, breakdowns, and I do this stuff. It's not really my specialty. And he's like, well, you shouldn't do that. You should just do events. That's what's going to make you money. And I was like, no, I make plenty of money doing what I currently do now. And I've been doing it for years. And he's like, no, you got to get into the event space, man. If you can start selling out some arenas, you'll make some money. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm going to do what I'm good at, what my job is, right? I'm like, I make plenty of money doing what I'm going to do. He's like, oh, well, I don't know about that. You run some events, you can make a couple million real quick. I was like, all right, well. I forgot all the millions every fighting game TO is making.